Guess who's not in Bali? Correct. Um, I'm in Noosa, Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Queensland. Um, and yeah, I wanted to make two videos about the reasons why I'm not in Bali. Because, yeah, I think it's a good way for me to share my hands on psychology approach with you guys out there. If I use my own examples of, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that on video, but I might just beep that out. Yeah. So two videos. One explains a little bit the reasons, and the other one is about mindfulness, which is a big term in nowadays psychology. I am not in Bali because I stuffed up, and I thought this is a good opportunity for me to share how I dealt with the situation. Obviously, there are mistakes in there, and obviously, I didn't do everything right. But I do think that the majority of my decisions and the majority of my coping strategies were actually quite good. So I tried to practice what I preach, and that's actually something that I often do. So I often lean back in a situation and think, if I would be my client, what would I recommend? What would I suggest? And I mean, I sometimes actually don't follow my own advice, but and obviously you can't be your own psychologist. That's impossible. Like that's why we call it unconscious or subconsciousness. Um, I'm not sure if you can be your own hairdresser, but you can't be your own. You can't be your own psychologist. If it's getting into deeper stuff, you need someone that gives you like that sort of extra push. But I think in this situation, this is probably a little bit more like interventional psychology. I could actually lean back and think, what would I recommend? Um, and so basically, my passport is expiring in February, which is less than 6 months. So they didn't allow me to enter the country. I found this out a night before my flight, and I had bought a surfboard, um, sort of specifically for that trip. Obviously, something that I can still use, and I have used it already, but nice mid-length single fin local shaper here in Newcastle. Beautiful surfboard. And I was like super keen to try it out. I had booked my flights, I had an accommodation, and I found out that they won't let me into the country. Now, this is stressful. It's not life and death, but it is quite stressful. Um, so my losses are when I have no idea when the next situation will occur where I have 5 weeks off. Like, especially now being fully self employed, I don't think this is going to be happen soon. Um, and this would have been an opportunity for me to live in a cheap country for a little bit more than a month and actually dive into their culture and probably learn a little bit more about it than just 10 days or something. Um, and it's also from like I've never been there. Like research shows that it is quite cheap. So like I deliberately wanted to go somewhere to not burn too much money with being self-employed, fully self-employed afterwards. I need a little bit of buffer to sleep well and stuff like that. So There were multiple reasons why Bali was like a good destination for me. Um, so my losses are I will not have that experience. Um, and I lost $250, which is a lot of money. Like, please, guys, don't get me wrong, but like if we put that into proportion of my situation, um, I stuffed up big time and I only lost $250. I thought I will like lose like $1,000 at least with the flights and everything. We're talking a night before my flight went. Um, so what I basically did was yeah. So I always lean back and I think, what would I recommend to someone in a situation like that? Um, and what are the steps? Okay, so we need coping. We need stress coping. Why is that important? Um, so stress response is something that is basically fight flight. We are not very flexible in our thinking. We're not very creative in our thinking. Like we look for a tree that we can climb or a straw that we can grab. Um, when a tiger attacks us. Um, so this is kind of, I don't know, ancient, like it's not the lizard brain, but like to keep things simple, it's an ancient part of our brain that kicks in, which is quite helpful in a situation where we're being attacked by something. Um, a lot of physical reactions happening. So even like blood pressure, heart rate, all these kind of things, hormones. There's a lot happening on a physical level, but there's also a lot of happening on a psychological level. Um, so basically, we split our attention on the attacker and an exit. That's what we do, and it feels like tunnel vision. So what I was doing is like clicking and clicking and putting my passport expiry date in again and again and again. Um, and I stepped back and I thought, okay, like, do I want to try this the 120th time or so I, this is not to be recommended, but I want to be honest here. I bought myself a glass of wine, and by the way, I don't drink in stressful situations, so I earned that glass of wine anyways. Like it's not like I kind of. If I listen to myself, like I sound like an idiot now, but like I didn't pour myself a glass of wine because it was stressful. I don't drink when I'm sad. I don't drink when I'm stressed. I'm not someone who tries to sort of numb my feelings. Um, I'm quite the opposite. I usually have a drink when I feel good. So, but I needed a break from what I was doing, and I was kind of waiting for that glass of wine, anyways. So I had a glass of wine, leaned back. What would I recommend to myself? Okay, calming down. So I did a bit of breathing. Like I use belly breathing. Like there are like several different methods on the internet. If you guys want to look it up, breathing is a physical. Like we force our body to relax. If we're stressed, we hyperventilate. We put a lot of oxygen in our system, which is quite helpful if we need to run or attack or climb or jump or something. But it also makes us a bit dizzy and has negative effects. So if we take deep breaths and use relaxation exercise, breathing exercise, we calm our system down. We force our system to relax. Um, with that relaxation, my decision making is much better. I realized that I have to call someone, and it was nighttime. So I realized that I can't do much right now. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do more research, to sit on the computer and find more websites and whatever. So I completely stepped back from my computer. Now there are different types of coping strategies, stress coping strategies here, and I basically and we like kind of define them in active and passive. So the active ones are the healthy ones, are the productive ones, and like the passive ones are like ignoring or something like that, which doesn't really help, but obviously it still calms us down in a way. But it is kind of procrastinating or something that's very unhelpful. So I chose an active form, which is relaxation first. And while I was relaxing, I realized I can't do much today. So um, I kind of prepared myself for what is the worst case scenario. And this is a cognitive technique where the worst case scenario is that I won't get any money back on the flights and I will get a percentage back on the accommodation. And I have a surfboard that I bought for a trip that I can't use on that trip, but I still have a surfboard. Mm, I I put that into perspective and I thought, well, I'm still a pretty lucky man. I can still travel. I can go to the Gold Coast. I can go to the Sunshine Coast, which is what I did. And I had friends hosting me on the Gold Coast. And I spent a couple of nights on the Sunshine Coast. And by the way, the surf was absolutely crap. There was no surf, like not even knee high. Gold Coast and Gold Coast was blown out, and the Sunshine Coast was flat when I was there. So that's another stressful situation that I had to deal with. But back to that night, I decided to not do anything. And I prepared myself for the worst case scenario. And I figured out that I'm still a pretty lucky individual. My life will go on. And I think this is probably important here to mention. Um, I had like quite full batteries when I came into that stressful situation. So my house didn't burn down the night before. My wife didn't leave me for my best friend. My car didn't break down. I didn't get fired. I made a decision a few weeks ago to leave Hunter Psychological Services, and I am going to be self employed. I still have an income until whenever, and I'm going on a break. Something went wrong, and I could lose a significant amount of money, but this is not the end of the world. Okay, let that sink in for a moment. I think that's really important. So take another sip of wine or whatever. Um, and then I went to bed. I went to bed. I have my bedtime routine, and this is something that I can only suggest for people with sleeping problems. I don't suffer from any insomnia or sleeping problems. I can probably lay down right now and sleep. But I went to bed, and the next morning I called the airline, and they were very friendly and were competent and they could help me. And we cancelled my flights, and I received like I think like yeah they basically said I have to pay a cancellation fee for $250. I called the accommodation, cancelled the accommodation. They were friendly enough to not charge a cancellation fee, and I lost $250 and an experience. Experience is sad, but again, not the end of the world. Um, so what I'm trying to say here is, and I would like to turn this around in a little bit of a different light or perspective. I could have sat there the whole night and tried to figure things out and go into a deep rabbit hole of clicking and Google and being stressed and probably drink a whole bottle of wine without stepping back, being completely wasted the next morning, um, making stupid decisions. Like I actually thought at one point I'm just flying, and then I figure out what's happening when I'm there. And if they kick me out of the country, they kick me out of the country. Who like they should have a policy for that or something. Like I don't know. Like and I'm probably not the first person and not the only person who has a similar problem, because I had a valid passport, right? So I'm like, yeah, but I think like that is a stupid idea. Um, so I was going down like rabbit holes, or I had the potential to go down rabbit holes, but I stepped back. I used an active like coping strategy, and I calmed my system down. I was way better afterwards and more creative, and so my like I wasn't just looking for the tiger who attacks me and the tree that I could climb. And actually, I think tigers can climb trees. That's not a good idea. So yeah, don't listen to that kind of advice from me. If you're in a situation attacked by a tiger, I don't know. But yeah. So, and coping strategies again, we distinguish between problem solving and emotional regulation techniques. So they are more problem focused techniques, and they're more emotional, and they're both active coping strategies. I explained before the passive and the active, so they're both active. They're both helpful and productive. So we have the emotional focused ones. That is basically a relaxation strategy. I calm my emotions down. Also used the cognitive one to put things in perspective. I'm still a pretty lucky man that I can go on holidays. And the worst case scenario is still kind of okay. There's no actual threat. Um, and then there's problem solving, which was waiting for the next day, having a plan, finding a strategy, calling the airline first thing in the morning. And I was I was switched on up here. I wasn't wasted. I wasn't hungover. I was good, so I could discuss things and I could consider my options. And I cancelled the flight. Next thing was cancelling the accommodation. I was still kind of, oh, I mean, I was late, but I was early for a late one. So they were friendly enough. I explained my situation, and they hope that I will come back one day. And yeah, so please let me know what you guys think. Give me feedback on that. I think obviously there are several things that um, I mean, like I'm only human, right? So I didn't do everything perfect, but I thought it's a good example to discuss hands-on approach. How do I react in situations like that? Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Follow us on all channels. Easy Tiger Psychology, hands-on psychology advice. Good night.